It's time for number 31 in my series of video game movie reviews, with the fourth entry in a video game movie series that has become quite divisive. And by divisive, I mean most people shit all over it. Not really divisive then, I guess. But hey, the director of the first movie is back, so there's that. No? Resident Evil Afterlife, aka Resident Evil 4, is brought to us by director Paul W.S. Anderson. You may remember Anderson as the director of Mortal Kombat and the first Resident Evil movie. He has also served as producer and writer on all the Resident Evil movies up to this point. And apparently he decided, bitches, I gotta come back and fix this shit. So he's back! For better or for worse. We follow, once again, Milla Jovovich's Alice, a few months after the conclusion of the last film. She and her clones have infiltrated the Umbrella Corporation's main office in Tokyo and killed the fuck out of everybody there. With the exception of one guy, the big guy himself, series antagonist Albert Wesker. In the process of killing the fuck out of everybody at their headquarters, Alice's clones all get taken out as well. And she also loses her powers due to Wesker injecting her with some kind of stuff. So after a pretty rough plane landing that makes no fucking sense at all how the fuck she lived, we flash forward a few months to where Alice is going to meet up with her friends in the safe zone in Arcadia, Alaska. However, when she arrives, there's not fuck all shit there. No friends, no Arcadia, no safe zone, not shit. With the exception of Claire Redfield. She shows up like a feral beast and tries to kill Alice and has totally lost her memory apparently. She's able to subdue her and they take off in her plane to LA for some reason. I don't know. We're never really told why, and if we were told why, I didn't catch it. But we're back in a dilapidated city, and that's where all the greatest zombie movies take place. Alice and Claire meet up with a group that is holed up in a prison in the middle of LA, and discover that Arcadia is not a place, but a boat that just conveniently happens to be docked in LA right now. So now Alice, Claire, and their new friends have to figure out a way to get out of the prison, through the zombie horde, and to safety on Arcadia. This is the third sequel in the Resident Evil movie franchise, and the fourth movie. After the financially successful but very disappointing second entry, and better but less financially successful third entry, they decided to bring back the guy who started it all, Paul W.S. Anderson. Anderson has gotten a really bad rap over the years, and a lot of that boils down to the Resident Evil series. And I don't think that that bad rep is totally earned. Are these movies great? No, absolutely not. They're trash to the highest level, but some of them are really fun trash. And outside of the Resident Evil franchise, the guy has made some really entertaining movies with things like Soldier, Event Horizon, and Death Race. And of course, the one that really put him on the map, Mortal Kombat. On a side note, his first movie ever, called Shopping, starring Jude Law, is pretty fucking badass too, but very few people know about that movie. If you see it available though, definitely worth checking out. So regardless of reputation, Anderson is back to inject a bit of fun into the franchise and once again make it a financially viable franchise. And whether you like this movie and the ones that came after it or not, that is what he did. This movie is absolutely ridiculous, and it does have some inconsistencies that are pretty hard to look past. But on the flip side of that, this movie is really fucking fun too. Afterlife keeps with the series formula of fun over realism. This movie is not trying to be real. It's not even trying to be consistent a lot of the times. It's just trying to have fun. And it does do that. This movie is a fun ride. Once again, it's trash. It's totally trash. I absolutely acknowledge that. But it is entertaining, fun trash, and that is the point of a movie, is to be entertaining. So in that respect, it is successful. And speaking of successful, this movie did boost that financial side of the series. The Resident Evil series has always been pretty financially viable, but from this one on, they've all been very financially viable. And a lot of that can be attributed to Anderson. Regardless if you like him or not, he came back and these movies started making a shit ton more money. The story here is fairly thin. It's really just a vehicle to get our characters into cool situations so that they can look cool on camera and do cool things. There's not much going on between the ears here, but if you're able to let go of that and just suspend disbelief for a while, it is a good time. Now about that suspension of disbelief, there are a few parts, especially in the beginning of the movie, that even with suspension of disbelief, I've got some questions. There's some things that are a bit too inconsistent that don't quite jive. This movie's more than 10 years old now, so it's not much of a spoiler. Plus, this happens near the beginning. A few minutes into the movie, Alice loses her superpowers because she gets injected with a cure or something. I don't really know. All we do know is that she instantly loses her superpower. When this happens, she's on a plane, and said plane ends up crashing into the side of a fucking mountain, blowing blowing up into a ball of fire. In the next scene, we just see her walking away from it coughing. Now, prior to losing her superpowers, I guess you could explain this, but if she just lost her fucking superpowers, how in the fuck did she survive this accident? There's no way possible anyone in any fucking world could survive this plane crash without superpowers. But you know, we let that one go and we move on. Now later in the movie, Alice of course gets into a whole bunch of action set pieces and fights with monsters and creatures and bad guys. And during these scenes, she does things that are not only superhuman, but they are superhuman even within the world of this movie franchise. She lost her powers, but it doesn't really seem like she lost her powers. I mean, I guess she doesn't have like telepathic powers anymore or anything, but she's still got like superhuman strength. She's jumping all over the fucking place and dodging bullets and all kinds of crazy shit. As far as I can tell, this chick is still superpowered, but the movie claims she is not. Now, I know what you're saying. This is a Resident Evil movie. What the fuck are you doing nitpicking this shit? And had they not done the whole you lost your superpowers thing, I really wouldn't have a problem with it. But they made it a point to say you have now lost your superpowers. You're not super fast, you're not super strong, you're not that badass that you used to be. But she immediately turns around and continues to be a badass in the very same scene and throughout the entirety of the rest of the movie. Why even have the whole we took your superpowers thing to begin with? It added nothing to the movie at all. If they had just cut that couple of seconds out right there, it would have improved the movie overall. There's also some very different new zombies and monsters that show up in this movie from the later games, but we're never really given a reason as to why they are different. And the thing that's different about them is pretty damn distinct and kind of does deserve a reason as to why this thing is happening. Now in the game series we get a reason, but that is not the same reason as here. Or at least I don't think it is. It doesn't make any fucking sense if it is. But much like Alice's superpowers, sometimes you just gotta let that shit go and roll with it to have a good time here. The performances as a whole here are exactly what you expect from a Resident Evil movie. They are on par with the first movie and the third movie. Notice I skipped the second one because the performances in that, even by Resident Evil standards, were absolute total dog shit. No, they're not that bad. They are on par with the rest of the franchise though. It's what you expect. Over the top and hammy performances. But it does kind of work in this ridiculous world they've created for this series. This movie is less concerned with what its characters are saying and more concerned with making them all look like badasses. The special effects as a whole are pretty good. In fact, these are the best special effects in the series up to this point. Everything looks pretty solid, nothing stands out as just absolutely awful. There's a few moments that the green screen does stand out a bit, but as a whole, it all looks pretty good. Unlike its predecessors up to this point, there's no shitty looking CGI monsters that show up that stand out like a sore thumb. Everything here looks pretty good, and they did do a fair amount of practical work, and that all of course looks really good. As a whole, this entry is not as good as the first or third entry, but it is absolutely better than part 2. Anderson's return, love him or hate him, does absolutely inject a level of fun into the movie that we haven't seen since the original. It's a trashy movie with a really thin story, some hammy ass acting, and some major inconsistencies in the story. But it does look really good, has some great special effects, and is just fun. It's fairly forgettable, but it is fun, and because of that, Resident Evil Afterlife is totally worth checking out on streaming.
Across the street.
This is not the best the series has to offer, but it's definitely not the worst either. If you're not a fan of the previous movies, then this one's not going to change your mind. But if you did have fun with those movies, then check this one out, you'll have a good time. So there it is, guys, my review of Resident Evil Afterlife. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, Arcadia. So what's next on the video game movie review list? Oh god, they made a third one. Oh, and it's Uwe Boll again. But what's that? Is this the last one? Is this Uwe's final video game movie adaptation?